This is how I turned Artemis from Brawlhalla from a 2D character to a 3D one using Blender and nothing else. Now unfortunately I did not record myself modeling the entire model because I got the idea to film this while making it. But I will explain everything that I did from UV unwrapping, also to some modeling that I did of the details. After explaining the UV unwrapping, I will also explain how I did some really nice materials that turned out way too good for me, to be honest, for my skill level. After that I also rigged this. I also did do a little showcase of it. I'm not too sure if I will ever do an entire animation of the model, maybe using the scythe too. But I don't know, maybe I will, maybe I won't. Now to explain what I'm doing here is that I started modeling some details since the model was looking bland and lacking in character. I wanted it to resemble Artemis from the game, but with my own touch to it. So I made some slight adjustments like adding this piece of dangling cloth to it and some hand accessories. I also made her scarf to the best of my abilities since I am not used with turning curves into objects, but it turned out well. Now as for this, all I did was using a path, and after putting the path I actually made a plane and gave it a curve modifier, so that with an array modifier too, so that the object will follow the path of the curve using of course the curve modifier, and that's how I was able to also shape it in that round way. As for all the other details, they were quite easy. All I did was selecting a face loop using Alt left click, and then extruding it using E, and putting some loop cuts using Ctrl R just to give it that tiny bit of definition into it. This is what I did for both the leg band and the hand accessories. I needed to UV unwrap the mesh so that when I use the materials I made, it would mask it using the UV instead of being randomly generated. As for the arm piece, all I did was putting a mark seam using Ctrl A outside the extruded parts as well as the end of the mesh. As for the cloth that was next to the leg, it was a single seam vertically, but to give it the UVs a nice distribution, I selected two vertices from a single face and aligned them vertically and horizontally by clicking right click, then aligning horizontally, and right click, aligning vertically. And while the face is selected, I press L to select the rest of the face and right click to follow active quads. This will straighten all the UVs into nice UV islands. To keep this video short, I will explain how to UV unwrap anything. Basically, all you need to do is to put a seam using Ctrl A at the beginning and at the end of an object, and one last long seam across the mesh. And do not forget, if your mesh have a lot of round edges or bumps in it, you should do the same for them, or else the UVs will be distorted and overlap. A good tip to remember is using the mirror modifier while unwrapping, so you only have to do half the work. But remember to apply the modifier once you finish and then press U to unwrap, since it will only unwrap half the object while the modifier is active. In this part, I made the metallic material without making a texture or importing one. Here's how I did it. What I did was adding two color ramps, connecting one to the metallic node and the other into the roughness node of the principal BSDF. Most of our work will be following the roughness color ramp. What I did was adding a noise texture and a mapping node and a texture coordinate node and connecting all of them together. After that, I added a bump node connected with a Voronol texture and a mapping node. I swear that node nobody can pronounce it. Voronol. With a noise texture, and I tweaked some settings and I got this really nice purple metallic which I think really suits Artemis since I think she uses antimatter for her abilities. After that, I assigned some other materials I made into the model to give it a little bit of a glow. If you ever want me to explain how the shading system works in Blender, let me know in the comments. As for the results, see for yourself. If you liked this video, please consider subbing to this channel and dropping a like.